Greetings, friends. Your cartoonist pal Stan here with a brand new episode of Random Encounters. Sorry, no, 50 years in the dungeon. It's Wednesday. I'm telling you, I'm having little bits of tech problems, and it's already throwing me. Thank you for joining in here, as we do every week. I'm going to be here talking on subjects that range in the history of the tabletop role playing game industry. The now 50, going on 52-year uh, history, and talking to folks and doing some drawing if I can uh, while we do that. This week we're trying something different. Uh, I've got multiple guests. We're gonna be talking about a person who was did a lot of really great things for the industry and for fantasy role playing, fantasy fiction, and to my mind, never really got the kind of public uh, spotlight that what she did deserve. Her name was Jean Rabe. She passed away last month, and I've decided to invite some people on who worked with and were friends with her, so we could have a conversation about Jean and her life and her work, and just kind of remember what she did for us and for gaming. So I'm going to grab my my little controller here and pull up a different screen where we've got my three guests. We've got Stephen D. Sullivan and Kevin Melka and Ann Brown. And rather than try and be a big shot introduction guy, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. Uh, Steve, why don't we start with you up there in the upper left?
Yeah, I'm the old guy. I started playing D&D. It'll be 50 years ago this fall, but in 1980 in September, I of 1980, I came to work for TSR in the editorial department, then called production. Eventually, I moved down into the art department for various weird TSR reasons, and then went on to found Pacesetter Games with all sorts of other cool people. And then in 1984 and then in 1986, I came back to TSR working as a freelancer on various projects for, well, the whole rest of the time they were in like Geneva. So, and even technically, even today, because they still send me some royalties every once in a while, and I go out and buy lunch.
All right, thank you for coming on, Steve. Kevin Melka, why don't we come next over to you?
Well, I've been playing D&D since the summer of '81. And a bunch of friends of mine in our gaming group, we met up with some TSR people, Mr. John Harold Johnson, a couple other people, and we started doing conventions. And in the mid '80s, we were the people that ran East Hall um, at Gen Con in Milwaukee. And while we were doing that, my late friend Keith Polster and I, we did adventures and tournaments for Gen Con, and that's where we kind of got into the RPGA. And in the early '90s, Gene hired me on as the tournament coordinator for the RPGA network, and then I moved later to being a game designer who did not go to Seattle.
All right, thank you. Thank you for being here. And Brown, why don't we segue over to you?
That's me. I didn't know we'd have to give a history. Okay,
Just a
I,
quick
like a lot of
introduction.
women,
I mean, you've been on the show.
got into
Right? If
the.
people want the big, deep Anne Brown story, they can. I don't remember the episode number, but we spent an hour and a
Oh
half
yeah,
plumbing the depths of Anne Brown.
we did.
This is a quick
Well,
refresher.
we skimmed the surface, but so like a lot of women, I got into D&D because my husband got me into it. Um, Started playing in like '82. My first Gen Con was in '83, which makes me feel ancient, and I don't dare count how many that is because it feels way too old. Anyway, started at TSR in 1989. It was May. Roger Moore hired me on for the magazines. By September, Jim Ward poached me into games, and I became a games editor and then did some design work and so on and so forth. So,
And you were a
what else?
playtester for me at Pace Setter, me and Troy and all those guys.
We found, I meant to say, so my husband and I found guys at probably Gen Con Parkside, maybe. Anyway, we
Yep.
started playing Chill and loved it, and met you and Troy and Andrea, and like always looked for games, and pretty soon you guys knew we were coming, and you know, we knew each other slightly. So, but yeah, got into Chill really big, and enjoyed the pace setter stuff.
Yep. And that I suppose that counted for TSR experience too. I mean, when you applied at TSR, they were like you had some playtest experience, at least if you wanted to claim that.
True. Yeah. Yeah, true.
Although there was
very
one
true.
point at which if you talked to Pace Setter, you were supposedly going to be fired from TSR.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Another old story.
Another old story.
All right, so we've got a few people watching here. Chris Andrew has said
Probably tell the same ones.
Jamie Chambers is here. Says he's grateful for Gene, without whom he might not have had a career. Rest in peace. So yeah,
there are a lot of people that could say that about Gene.
Oh, I'm definitely one of them.
Michael says Ann Brown's episode is episode number 23. In case you want to go looking for that, it's in
Thank
the
you
archives.
for finding that,
Kevin. Well, then why don't we start with you? Say you're definitely one of those people that wouldn't have had a career if not for Gene. Why do you say that?
Well, like I mentioned before, Keith and I, we ran tournaments at Gen Con, and even before we were doing East Hall, we were running tournaments we were helping this other gentleman do tournaments. And after that was all over, make a long story short, nobody wanted to work with that guy anymore. So he said, "Hey, why don't you guys run events at Gen Con?" And we started out in '86, and we ran a bunch of events. It was called the Star Trilogy, and we ran probably over 500 people that year in our event. The next year in '87 was when Jean came on board at the RPGA, and she had heard about the events that we were doing, and we had met her a couple of times, and she said, "Hey, why don't you guys run your stuff in the RPGA, and we can, we'll do all this," and it was great. And we did that for many, many, many years. And back in the day, the RPGA used to have writing contests for their membership. Well, the first two of them I won. So when Skip left the RPGA to go work in the design department,
Skip Williams.
Dave Gross came on.
Skip Williams, we're talking about.
And Dave Gross came on to replace him. The gentleman that had the tournament coordinator position, he couldn't do it anymore, and he left. And then I applied for Skip's job. I didn't get it. It's a good thing Dave got it, because he's much better magazine editor than I ever could be. But Jean saw I was looking, so she's like, "Hey, you want to come on and be the tournament coordinator?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And Jean got me my first real project as a freelancer with TSR while I was working with the RPGA. And then when Jean left the RPGA, I took the first opportunity I had to move over to the design department through Mr. Ward.
Yeah,
the great Mr. Ward comes up again.
Absolutely.
Another person to be fondly remembered.
Yeah. So I mean, Gene could get you to do just about anything just by asking. And
I don't know if I ever would have written a real short story if it weren't for Gene. I'd written novels, but she was the one like, "You should write a short story. Come on, let's write something short." I'm like, no. She's like, "I've got this anthology, and if you write something, I'm in."
There are a couple of things that Gene really does not get credit for. I mean,
she discovered more talent.
Yes,
than
absolutely.
anyone else in our industry, I think. Period. I mean, just
yeah.
So
but she could get anybody to do anything. Like Roger Moore, Ed Greenwood, all the big hitters back in the day, they would all do stuff regularly for Polyhedron. You know, and it wasn't part of their regular job. It was stuff they did on the side, you know. And Gene is one of, if not the founding person of organized play with Living City. If it wasn't for Gene, that would have never happened. So people don't understand that hey, you know, you got things like Adventurers League and all these other new organized play things that are coming out of the woodwork, Pathfinder Society, all that stuff. If it wasn't for Gene, those things might not have been around, or at least not in the incarnation that they are today. And this generation of gamers just they don't know that because it's not documented anywhere. It's documented in places like this.
Right. But and that's, I mean, just to say that's why I thought it was important to put this panel together. Gene did a lot in a lot of different areas, and you know, those of us who were there, those of us who got to interact with her, know that, and a lot of other people don't. So to kind of to start, then can one or all of you kind of talk about what are the areas that Gene worked in? Like we've already said, did she start at the RPGA? Is that how she came into the company?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Penny Petticore, or today Penny Williams, was leaving the RPGA. And Penny had met Gene at conventions in the past. And she called up Gene and said, "Hey, I'm leaving. I think this would be great for you." And then she applied and got it. And if I remember right, that was either late '86 or early '87.
Right, I think she started in '87. I don't remember exactly when she started. As I told you guys in the beforehand, by '87 I'd left Pace Setter and I was working at TSR again, thanks largely to working with Margaret Weiss on Dragonlance stuff. I did the maps for the second set of Dragonlance books, and I did them free because I wanted to know where I was in the world, and the little hex maps that Tracy had generated that were in the original books, I could never find anything. I said, Margaret, I will do the maps for you for free. Maps was one of the things I did at TSR. If all you have to do is use it. And I did that, and I think that actually got me back in the door. I don't know if Margaret pulled any strings, but I'm sure that TSR saw free. So I had
don't see that very often.
I'd come back into TSR and I was working freelance, and on one of my freelance, and I would come into the office and I knew everybody because I'd worked there for 4 years, right? And on one of those tours through the office, I vaguely remember meeting Gene being the new, I probably went into RPGA to see who, you know, Penny or whoever had been there before. And Gene was there, and it was like, they were like, hey, here's Gene Rabe, she's in charge of the RPGA. And so we met, but it wasn't like one of those, hey, we met and spent a lot of times together. It was like, and then I would visit her whenever when I came to the office, and I would see other people. I would see Anne when she was there, you know, and the other, whatever of my friends were remaining there, and there were a lot of them for all the time that TSR was out here in like Geneva. And I met her during one of those walkthroughs, and she became one of the people I would just see regularly. You know, I would, I need to go stop by Jean's office and see what she's up to and that kind of stuff. So I don't have kind of a really strong, it was, you know, the lights came down and she called me up and to work for her or something like that. But we became friends just casually through that way. And that's not really talking about what she did, because most of the stuff that I know she did the RPGA stuff, and she invented the kind of Adventurers Guild way that the thing functions and runs and all that kind of stuff. It's weird. My son, who well, I did not teach to, my kids didn't learn to play for me, but my son has taken up playing. He's playing Pathfinder with friends now. And when Jean died, he saw an obituary about her, and he says, I didn't realize she'd started this whole Adventurers Guild thing. And I was like, well, yeah, she did that, and just as part of her job, because she thought it would be a good thing to do, as I remember. It was just like, where can I take that? And she started the Gen Con Writers Seminar thing the same way. It was just something she thought would be cool to do and fun to do, and it's grown into this huge annual of many people with, and I guess they're doing books. She and I did first two Gen Con anthologies together. So she did that kind of thing constantly. It was she'd find something she thought needed doing, and she'd do it, or she'd do it and convince people it needed to be done, or the other way around, right? That was and people didn't say no to Jean.
No,
because Jean was
she was
smart, she was funny, she was
enthusiastic.
charming.
that was a big thing.
Yeah,
They didn't
she
say
could sell
no.
people on easily because she was enthusiastic and sincere. She wasn't, you know, trying to sell you a bunch of junk that nobody wanted. It was, hey, this is a great idea, and here's why. And and we need this.
Yeah, exactly.
Jean could
and
really
it was never about Jean either. It was never about her doing it, which is why people don't know that she did all this stuff, right? So it was always about, this is a good idea. We should do this. Here's why, and she would tell you, and she would be right.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one thing that really sticks out for me is she took Polyheat, which wasn't a monthly zine in the first, what, Steve, 30, 40 issues?
Yeah,
something like that. And she made it a monthly thing. And let me tell you, back then, putting that thing together on a monthly basis, that wasn't easy. You know, it was a lot of hard work. They had the lineograph machine. Is that what that was, Steve? The old lineograph machine. People don't understand that.
Yeah, linotype. Yeah.
Oh, the linotype machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old linotype machine. Yeah. And that's how they did Poly up for almost the whole time we were at TSR.
That's how they did everything when I started there. I mean, everything was run out text and then do paste up. For anybody watching who does not know what we're talking about, you would literally have your text in columns, and somebody would have to physically cut them out, put them on a board, put the illustrations where they go, paste in the captions where they go, and all this stuff went through a waxer, so you could just stick it down. Then later on, if you had to peel it up, it wasn't permanently glued, but it was all laid out by hand. And if you go back and look at anything from, I would say, pre-1990, you will see that format. And so
everything was done that way. It was all done.
Poly was done on a shoestring because it was included in your membership, right?
Yep, absolutely. It
really wasn't a monetary, benefit to TSR. It was just a nice, cool thing that you got as a member.
Well, that changed a little bit.
It was another little house organ, and go ahead.
Yeah, go. So that changed a little bit later on, and one of the other things that Jean did was she got tournament authors paid. So back in the day, if you wrote a tournament for the RPGA, you didn't get any money for it. Now, when I came on board, it was like, well, why can't we get some money for authors, like $10 a round or something like that? It's better than nothing. Because what we were doing before that, it was Jean would go and she'd grab this big stack of those TSR RPGA gift certificates, and we'd run them through the big line printer, and she would hand those out to people like she was giving away chiclets, and we're like, well, let's get something for the authors. And so she got Lorraine to sign off on it, and that was, I mean, it was something. It was better than nothing. And like we all been saying, that she could get almost anybody to do anything. And if you never really got your hands on a polyhedron or have a big stack of them in a box somewhere like I do, the Internet Archives has a pretty good offering. I went through it not too long ago. There's probably about 30-ish issues between 1 and 100 missing, but for the most part, it's still there.
I just sold all those.
Yeah.
Did you really?
If I'd known. I honestly, I just did. I mean, at the end of last year, Paul Sternberg sold my entire polyhedron collection and my entire Dragon magazine collection.
I mean, if there's one issue that you ever wanted to look at, it was one of the last ones that Jean did, and that was issue 100, which pretty much had everybody on the cover. I mean, everybody that was a TSR person. I'm pretty sure you were on there, Steve.
Could have been.
Yeah, I mean, and that was another thing. I mean, she could get anybody to do anything, like for art especially. I remember Jim Holloway told Gene once that he was going to burn a bunch of old prints that
Jim Holloway springs to mind.
Started and maybe never finished or didn't like or whatever. And she's like, no, give them to me. And one of my first days there, Jim's walking in the hallway with this giant handful of art prints, and I think we used a half a dozen of them in Poly, and I'm sure Gene paid him, but
I'm sure she did.
Yeah, it was things like that she could just, people just brought stuff to her. I also remember when Magic first was published, Magic the Gathering. Lisa Stevens, who was at Wizards of the Coast, sent Gene a box of Magic cards. What happened to those Magic cards, I don't know. But those were first edition Magic cards. So
she probably still have them. They're probably in Bruce.
Probably in a box somewhere, but Bruce hasn't found yet.
Yeah, but for those of you that don't know, and probably people that didn't work with Jim don't know, Jim Holloway regularly destroyed his art. He was fast and prolific, could do almost anything, and grew to hate it faster than any artist I ever knew, ever. So there, I have a number of pieces of Jim Holloway art in my collection. I mean, full paintings and stuff that I saved from his trash can. When I went over his house, Jim and I used to hang out. I went over to his house one day. It's like, Jim, why are these paintings in the trash can? He's like, oh, I haven't had a chance to burn them yet. And so I'd saved that. So, and Gene, being Gene, if you asked, he'd give them to you. And being Gene, she would then use them and she would pay him for them. And Jim loved working with Gene. Everybody loved working with Gene.
I mean, you guys kind of hit on something. Gene was just so nice. It was so hard to say no to her. And she approached everything with, just being so nice, and it's for the good of everyone, and it had really little to do with her. She had no ego, and
right.
And yeah, she, made it a better place to work.
So
it wasn't like he was blackmailing people into doing all this stuff. It wasn't a transactional thing at all. Not at all. It was just you would talk with her and she would say, have this idea, and you'd say, oh, that sounds interesting. And she's like, well, when are you going to do it?
So let me take that one step further. So when we used to do conventions, so we obviously we did Gen Con, but we also did Winter Fantasy. So I was on board for 2 Winter Fantasy with Gene, but I had been to probably at least almost all of them up until it was canceled. And what people don't know is, let me think now. So that would have been the 94 and 95 Winter Fantasies at the Hyatt. Gene didn't pay them a dime. She got the whole convention site for free.
How did that happen?
And she enough rooms, we didn't have to pay for the site at all. So that 95 convention, Gene was like, okay, I'm just going to have fun and I'm going to play this time. So when I took care, when I had to settle up with the Hyatt, I didn't even know this until then. So I said, well, what about are the fees all covered for the hotel, for the show and everything? Oh, no, that was all comped. I'm like, I'm sorry? That was comped? Yeah, that was all comped. Okay. Wow. And that included probably at least a dozen actual rooms where we had extra games going on, because we had so many people that con, we couldn't fit them in all the tables that were there. So, I mean, in addition to being the nicest person in gaming, she was a pretty shrewd negotiator as far as things like conventions and things like that go.
Now, Gene was definitely,
and she would never
hooking people up and making
never.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I talked about yet, and we have to, is gamer. We played a few games with Gene, and she was a player through and through. I was really impressed with the way she ran her game, her characters. I mean, every character had had its own person. Everything was in. Almost like a little show when she was DMing. So she was a player through.
Oh yeah, no, it's very good. My wife and I played Pathfinder with her and her husband Bruce and a number of other people for a couple of before, and it was a great time. I mean, the funny thing about TSR, when I was walking around in TSR, when they were hiring new people, it always became pretty. It became clear pretty quickly who was us, us, and who wasn't us. And Gene was very clearly one of us from very early on. One of us meaning we're into the games, the people that were into the hobby because we love the hobby, because we love the
Mhm.
games, because we love the role playing. And Gene was totally that.
Does
Totally.
anyone here know how Gene got into gaming? I mean, usually when we have these conversations, I bring that up when we've got the person around, and we talked about it. She was big on the scene, which is why she got invited to be part of the RPGA. Does anyone know how she got into gaming?
Yeah, a little bit. So she used to be one of the people that was in charge of a convention called Galathricon. And I think that's where she met Penny. But there was a couple of other conventions that she did before that, whose names are escaping me right now. Originally, how she got into gaming, I'm not quite sure. You probably have to ask Bruce.
Right.
I mean, she was a journalist for many years.
That's true.
And gaming was a hobby, but like a lot of us, me especially. I mean, I used to be a photographer before I was wearing TS. So,
Yeah, it's hard to say. And I, it's one of those things that she probably has told me over the years, and I've just forgotten, which is awful.
Yeah, no, I mean,
You have to. One of the things you should know about Jean was she was very big into football and
oh yeah,
stuff too, into those kind of competitions. So I can imagine that would have. She loved football and loved those football games. She would watch any football game that ever was on, right? Any football game, every football game, just like my wife. Every football game, every Sunday sometimes. With Jean almost all the time. She loved that kind of competition, but she also liked things that blow up, right? So she liked movies with explosions and adventure and all that kind of stuff. And I think being fond of that kind of adventure and stuff probably drew her toward the D&D the same way the rest of us were. It was like, ooh, we can play fantasy games. We can actually play the roles of the characters in the Lord of the Rings or something like the Lord of the Rings or whatever our favorite fantasy thing was. So I'm sure that probably appealed to her. And as at least the people here probably know, Gene also was later on the literary successor to Andre Norton,
Hmm.
who wrote Quag Keep. Gene wrote or co-wrote Quag Keep 2. And so she had, even as a writer, she had connections too. And I'm sure that Quag Keep and that kind of stuff may have actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Quag Keep may have been one of the things, the original thing back in what it was in 1981, 82, maybe earlier, may have actually been one of the things that drew her and or Bruce into the hobby. I think that's possible, but I don't know for sure.
yeah.
I don't remember for sure.
So another thing that maybe people don't remember about the RPGA, it wasn't just D&D. So and you had Chill earlier.
Hmm.
Obviously, Steve, your pace setter stuff. We played Space Ace, we played Time Master, we did Cthulhu
Mhm.
in the RPGA, and that was all for G. Now, I I had heard that wasn't a popular decision, but it was one that I think Gene made because I don't believe that was the where G came on board. I think it
No,
was
no, it
all
was
I think it was all D&D before
RPGA
that.
was totally a house organ. I mean,
Yeah,
it dealt with other TSR brand
right,
games, right? So
right.
you would have Gangbusters or Gamma World or something like that. And yeah, no, it was all TSR all the time.
Although
Yeah,
Dragon did other game systems from time to time, and then eventually flushed that out in lieu of just TSR stuff, if I remember right.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. The RPGA kind of worked the opposite way as Dragon Dragon started out covering everything and then narrowed down
Yeah.
to TSR. And the RPGA started with just TSR stuff and then gradually broadened out into other areas,
Right.
and probably narrowed back down then later too. But
towards the end, that was probably true. When WotC took it over, it became pretty much all D&D at that point.
What
Right.
year did Polyhedron start? Anybody remember?
Around 1981.
Yeah.
Okay.
81, 82.
What year
I
did
did
RPGA
the
start?
cover to the second one or the third one, I think. Valerie
was a s-
Belushi did the first one.
When did it start? And it had to be the same year or 80.
RPGA started
could have
around,
been-
around
Yeah,
80.
yeah.
It
When
couldn't have been
I
80.
joined, 80 or 81.
We were way too busy. I think it had its seeds in 1980 when I got there, but we were way too busy working on Basic and Expert. 1980, and Frank was one of the people that was working on Basic and Expert,
Oh,
and
right.
he ended up being the kind of prime mover early on. So it had to be 81 or maybe
Okay.
82, but it could have been fairly early in 81. It was, that's weirdly, that's a long time ago now.
Yeah. Seems like yesterday sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and you've heard these stories about people trying to one up each other with their RPGA number, right? Like the lower the number,
yeah.
and people would
Oh,
argue
yeah.
about, well, I'm number 182, I'm number 170, and then I think Jim Ward would pipe up and say, I'm number 2.
2. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
I
I
was-
wonder where Gene fell in the number
I was
range.
36.
You were
But that
36,
was
okay.
because I had a lower number, but then I converted to lifetime membership, and it annoyingly my number went up. I think it was like 9 or something before.
Yeah.
Gary was 1.
Yeah.
It's printed in an early polyhedron. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but the first 100 people are printed in an old issue of Poly.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I didn't
Michael in chat says that according to Wikipedia, Menzer started it in 1980. Now,
Okay.
that's according to Wikipedia, so we take that for what it's worth.
Wikipedia's pretty
may have
good.
had its genesis
they have
as an
gotten
idea.
so much better.
Then maybe.
Right. No, it's
I don't
it's
believe
worth
everything.
bringing up, but it's not necessarily
Right.
Well,
My
we just have to
memory
lay
is that
hands on
there
a
was too
polyhedron
much
number
going
1.
on at the end of 1980 for it to have actually started then. And Frank was still working in production then. And I would think it as an idea, it started in 1980, but I don't think it became an actual thing until the following year. Though, again, 46 years ago, I could be wrong. But I remember when all this stuff happened, and someone convinced me online that, according to some article or Wikipedia, that Larry Elmore was the first professional artist hired at TSR, and I was like, well, no, I was there when they hired him, and with me was Errol Otis and Jim Rosloff and Dave Sutherland.
I mean, people that write sentences like that have a particular definition of professional artist that they are pushing. So,
right, and even by that measure, not true.
Yeah. Bruce the Gamer, I don't know if this is Gene's Bruce, says Frank started RPGA in 1980. Also,
Okay,
so.
all right, if they insist.
But like I think
Frank could tell you. He could tell you exactly,
right.
probably.
I think you're right. It's very likely it was an idea, and it really took a little bit to get off the ground.
I believe that Frank and not to digress from Gene, but I believe that Frank and Gary were talking about it then. I know that it was it was definitely an idea around then, but I don't think it started until later. But I could be wrong.
So when Gene came on to RPGA, we've talked about a bunch of things that she had been responsible for after that. What was RPGA when Gene came in?
A mess.
It was, to my memory, it was kind of a house organ for TSR. It was the poor stepchild that had no resources and was always struggling to meet the deadlines for the newsletter, which I don't remember if it was quarterly.
It was quarterly to start, yeah.
Yeah, or I don't remember if it managed to even get to bi-monthly by then. It is worth pointing out, because you mentioned, Kevin, that Gene made it a monthly magazine.
Yep.
Gene had a genius for newsletter. I mean, a real genius for it. They talk about doing the paste up and having to kind of scrounge the resources and physically doing it. But after she did that, much later in her career, she took over the as SFWA, Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America newsletter, and was their editor in chief, and kept that and had that coming out on a monthly schedule when that was one of those things that struggled for ages too. And we were like, Gene, how are you doing this? And he's like, oh, it's easy. I just start at the front and I fill it to the back, and when I get it enough to fill a magazine, it's done.
The BattleTech too, the BattleTech magazine.
They had a magazine? Oh boy.
So this
Yeah.
wasn't like a one-off thing that just happened to fluky get together that she could do this. And honestly, if she were here and we could ask her, she'd probably tell us she figured out how to do all that stuff when she was doing RPGA, because in RPGA she had no time and no money and basically no staff or resources. But so she figured out how to do it fast.
So just here's another one that people probably don't know, and I'm pretty sure you knew this, but let me think of the dates now. It would have been the 94 and 95 Gen Cons. Gene did the program guide for the show.
Oh, right.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I remember that too.
Yeah. That and during those times, like Dave and I, we had to crunch down and help with Polly. I had to help with Polly a lot, and because Gene was doing the Gen Con guide. And unfortunately, that's not something that I ever saved. But if you go back and look at those guides for those years, they were great.
A lot of pages, a lot of charts.
Yeah, and you guys got to remember that was all done by hand, stuff that people had mailed in. There was a person that did it before Gene, and it was changed to Gene by Gene's new boss. And frankly, that was one of the reasons why she left. So,
I think I know who we're talking about.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
It was not Jim Ward.
Well, no. It was not Jim.
No.
Not Jim. No.
Now by 94, 95, we were working on desktop publishing, word processing at least.
Wow. All right.
We had that in.
Yep.
Oh yeah, because when did we go to? We went off of that horrible Edit 2 thing, and we got desktops, and then we were
the Macs
in WordPerfect.
Oh no, we had WordPerfect in the RPGA, but Gene was one of the first ones to get one of those new systems because she was doing the Gen Con programming guide.
Okay. Yeah, so at least it wasn't quite as archaic as some of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, God, don't we feel like dinosaurs? I mean,
I know.
When I started, all the type of things done out of house, had it shipped in. We used to cut it up with scissors, tape it. I'm not making this up.
I believe you.
Down to the boards. It would then go back to the printers who had done the typesetting. They would composite. They would relay it out, wax it. All the stuff we later did in house with a waxer and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then go on from there. So it's like, oh my God, having the typesetter in house, how nice that would have been. And then when you get to self-publishing, I've said a couple of times, if we'd had modern computers, a PaceSetter would still be going, because all of PaceSetter's big expenses were the outside stuff.
Oh,
the compositing and the types. Not the typesetting necessarily, but all the stuff. It would have been so much cheaper. So it's amazing, the technology. And again, she figured that stuff out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, Stan, you need to have Dave and Peggy on sometime to talk about how stuff was printed and
Peggy Cooper.
Yeah, Peggy Cooper and Dave Conant. Yeah.
Right.
To how it was, in the 80s, and then how it went to in the 90s. I mean, when we would receive our RPGA events in the 80s, the late 80s, and I'm sure Skip will tell you printing stuff on green bar paper off the TSR mainframe was how we put sense to people. I remember a couple of years somebody was
green bar paper. For those that don't know, was the computer paper with the sprockets on the side that had alternating green and white bars.
Yep.
So you could see where so you could read your line all the way where the cross without getting lost.
Right.
A couple of years
on
back
a
when they
matrix printer.
On a dot matrix.
On a dot matrix, the big one, the real big units that
the ones that sounded like machine guns.
Yes. Yeah, we had one of those in the RPGA. So it was funny a couple of years back when they were trying to revive Spelljammer, somebody posted an old Spelljammer module that was printed on green bar paper, and somebody goes, "Did you just print it on green?" No, that's how we printed them back then. They thought that this guy got the file and he printed it on green bar paper. I'm like, no, that's the way that we sent stuff out back then.
Weird.
Lots of changes, and Jean was always very quick to adopt new technology and new ideas stuff. I never knew her to be someone that would like, oh no, you can't do that because this is the way we've always done it, right?
No, she was we're gonna find a way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Drag the company kicking and screaming with her.
Yep.
Well, let me add another thing to Jean's list. When we did a lot of these conventions, especially Winter Fantasy and Gen Con, we'd have charity auctions. And this was something that Jean did by herself. And it was for the Seeing Eye dogs. I can't remember the name though. Where's Skip when you need him? But it was a Seeing Eye. It was a dog foundation for Seeing Eye dogs.
Jean loved dogs.
Yes, and she would raise thousands of dollars. I mean, that 40 years ago, that was a lot of money. And it was all from selling RPGA stuff, or we'd auction stuff off. Like Jean would get a handful of products. So for those people that don't know, whenever new products came out, there was a pallet. Was there one or two pallets, like one on each floor, Ann, or was it always just one pallet?
No, it was always down in receiving.
Yeah, okay. So there'd be a pallet with all the new products on it, and everybody could go down and pick whatever they wanted. Well, Jean...
You were supposed to take one of each.
And Jean wouldn't. She would take more than one. Or people would take one and give them to Jean, and then she would turn around and have the authors sign them, and then she would auction them off at RPGA events for charity. And I don't think anybody's ever done anything like that, in gaming at the time.
She never kept stuff for herself. It's really important to she would always give it away. She was not a person that kept things to keep them or to wanted more than she had.
Yeah.
She was always happy with with her share, and even to the end of her life, she was like she'd read a book and she would give it to someone else. She just didn't and that, so it doesn't surprise me that she would come up with that kind of an idea for an auction. And as we said, she loved dogs. The caveat to Jean loved movies that blowed up. If you were going to hurt a dog in the movie, she would have watched it. You could kill all in the world,
Don't hurt the dogs.
But if you hurt the dog, she was out of there. She loved dogs, and she wrote some very funny. I don't know if you guys ever got her newsletters, but she wrote some very funny first person things, and even this last Christmas, her Christmas letter, written from the point of view of her dogs, right? So, and it was all about the humans foiling the dog schemes and that kind of stuff. It's just wonderful. Very funny stuff. She was a brilliant writer. Did we say she was a brilliant writer yet?
Not yet.
No, you know what? I'm just looking at the clock and thinking, all right, so I've got to segue in a bit. Well, before we do that, Dave Shepard asks if anyone here has played in Gene's Spelljammer adventure, the unsung, fantastic, and perilous expedition of Ironhelm Jones's Rock Bottom Dwarven Mining Company.
I did not.
I remember it. I didn't play in it, but I remember it.
Where did that appear?
I want to say a Gen Con, but I don't think it was a Gen Con.
So it wasn't a published mod, it was a Gen Con?
No, it was an RPGA
Okay.
event.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah. There was a
Did she design that, I assume?
Did the person asking the question play in it?
I don't know, David. Have you or anyone else that's in chat right now? Anyone else get to play in that? In fact, this is the first I've heard of it, so I don't know. But just the title alone makes me know I want to play in it.
There is no really good record of RPG events. There's a couple of good lists out there, but I've already poo-pooed a couple of them. Like again, when the Spelljammer stuff was coming out, Dave Gross and I did a 2-round Spelljammer event for Gen Con where we were going to have a meteor destroy Raven's Bluff. And nobody had ever heard of the second round of that event because it was never, none of that stuff is ever documented. They thought, oh, it was a 1-round event. No, it was a 2-round event. But a lot of that stuff isn't documented. And one other thing too, we when we got adventure submissions for the RPGA, Gene would bend over backwards to make sure that that person got an event, even if it was written really badly.
Mm.
So I can remember her coming in the office and saying, hey, I need you to make this adventure work. And you know, it might not have looked like the way it came in, but you know, more than once people would come up to Gene and I and Dave and they would say, you know, thank you for publishing this event in Polyhedron, or thank you for running this at a convention, you know, for us, because it was kind of a badge of honor, especially if it was a Gen Con event. You know, you got your name in the programming guide and the whole 9 yards.
So,
you know, Kevin, I was going to say the best way to track down some of those old adventures, you know, convention mods would be to get hands on the old program books, if anybody can dig them up, because I mean all the events were listed.
So well, but there was dozens though that we sent out to people that were never at Gen Con or Winter Fantasy.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so what would happen is, especially once Living City took off, I mean, we just got smothered with Living City events. I mean, I was doing them, Gene was doing them, even Dave was doing them sometimes. And that was because it took off like a rocket ship. I mean, it was a untapped, you know, gold mine as far as a lot of people at TSR were concerned when I got there. And people would write adventures for their own cons just so that they would have an exclusive at their con. There was at least a dozen conventions, like other than Gen Con and Winter Fantasy. There was Origins, there was a couple in Chicago, there was some I mean, a lot of them on the East Coast. East Coast used to be huge RPGA. Origins, Dragon Con, you know, all that stuff. And the problem is that there's no really good list of all that stuff anywhere.
Yeah, true.
Dave Gross says he has no memory of that adventure you're talking about, except if it was maybe titled Fire in the Sky?
No, Fire in the Sky was Dave, that was your first round Hammer of Fire adventure, I believe.
He also says that people have asked him for some of his old RPGA events, but sadly, they're on 3.5 floppies.
Me too.
Wait, is that Dave? Is that Dave Gross messaging you?
That is Dave Gross.
Hello, Dave Gross.
Hello, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Been a long time.
People ask me for them quite a bit.
I would be surprised if Gene hadn't kept some copies of them in the office at the time. I don't
know. It's something to ask Bruce.
But that doesn't mean they got saved.
But I know
think a lot got tossed when the move happened.
I have no idea what happened when the move.
I showed up later than everyone else here, when we moved out, all of the RPGA records were still physical records, and that I remember the RPGA section at Wizards when we first got there was just file cabinets, and it was never prioritized to digitalize the stuff or even, you know, archive the information about it. But they had copies of I mean, it couldn't be everything, but put near everything that RPGA had on file. And like so many things that have happened at Wizards, as priorities shift, when RPGA stopped being important, they let people go, and then the people who were left didn't value the materials that were there, and so they kind of floated into the ether.
So one of the things that we did, Stan, was we kept an electronic copy when we have computers that could do electronic copies. But we also kept a physical copy, and the reason for that was it was easier to take that physical copy and go to the copy machine and just rip that off, and then we would put that back in the file. Right. I know which file cabinets you're talking about, because I filled up quite a few of those, and then Robert, I'm sure, filled it up after me. But what I would like to know is where the art cabinet went. Steve should know what I'm talking about. We had a room. You never saw that, Steve? There was a room.
I do. Art went missing so often at TSR. Sometimes it was given away. Sometimes the executives took it, and sometimes, especially the early days before Larry and Keith and all the the more famous of my comrades came along, a lot of times it would just get thrown out somewhere. If someone didn't take it, it would just it would end up
even in the last days. My last work in Lake Geneva, I stayed 3 weeks longer than everyone else who went out to Seattle, and I was given the task of going through cubes and offices and finding materials to save, and compile and piling it up. And I found piles of original artwork, little drawings, little icons, little maps that no one had a use for.
Original artists, they could be gone. And if they came back to Jim Holloway, they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. So right down from so Dave and Gene had offices right next to one another, and then I was across the way from that. But next to me on that side was a whole room with a giant art cabinet in it.
Right, I remember that. I remember that cabinet.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
So big flat files.
Yes, and where's all that? Because that thing was full when I got there. And
no, at some point they were trying to return some of that to the.
Were
artists.
they? Okay, well that's good.
But that's one of those good ideas that someone would say, yeah, let's return it to the artist, and then my guess is that they get into the thick of it and discover that, oh, well, we can return it to the artists that are working here now, but how do we even find whoever's not here anymore, or whoever's not coming in? And then God knows what would happen to that stuff. I mean,
because people don't understand.
It's like looking for old movie props. They just
because people don't understand that when we did Polyhedron, that was custom art for that magazine. It wasn't just art that somebody grabbed off a shelf that we weren't using. So and Gene took care of all that, and putting all that together on and coming out with 12 magazines a year. That was insane.
Right. And you mentioned Gene fixing up other people's modules, and you fix up other things. Another thing we haven't mentioned is Gene was a brilliant editor. Honestly, she was one of the 2 or 3 best writers and 2 or 3 best editors I know, and I know a lot of writers and editors.
All right, so we were gonna start kind of segueing, or at least bringing into the conversation the other things Gene did outside of RPGA. Steve, you were just saying she was a writer, she was an editor, and she did the same kinds of organizational things for things like SIFWA and other groups.
Right.
Well, and she did work for the game department too.
She used to have a saying that she
right. I would say that she was a game designer for the game department, but
right. And she used to have a saying that was like, if you want something done, give the job to someone who's always busy. And I'm not sure that's exactly the way she said it, but that was her thought. And the reason was because people that were always busy were accomplishing things, right? That they were doing stuff. Where people that were like, I'm looking for work. They're like, well, maybe you should be doing something rather than looking for work. And she
Mhm.
was she was that person. So people would come to her and she would take the job generally, even if she was busy, because she liked working and she loved writing and she liked editing. And she was Gene and I just kind of bring it back into there was a Gen Con. Remember what Gen Con it was, where they had the contest to create a new world for TSR WotC, and they were going to pay whoever's ideas they selected. They were going to pay him $100,000. I think was the thing, and
Yeah,
I
this,
remember
he ended
this is
up
this.
what Eberron came out of.
Eberron.
Yes,
Yes, that
yes.
I don't remember what year that was, but whatever year that was, a lot of people I know, including me, had submitted one or more things, and Jean was one of those people. And she submitted something. She may have submitted two ideas, and think I submitted three. Uh, but we didn't get the job, and we ran into each other at Gen Con that year, whatever year that was. It was in Milwaukee, right before
2000.
it moved.
Well, was it Milwaukee?
Yeah, it had
2000.
to be Milwaukee.
Well, because that was after third edition, so it's
Okay,
2001 or 2002.
really? Okay, I'll take your word for it. But it was that summer, as I recall. It was that summer we were ran into each other in the dealer's room, walking around. And, Gene, good to see you. Steve, good to see you. Um, and we discovered that we'd both submitted what was essentially the same idea
Oh wow.
for for the new the new TSR world. We submitted an idea that was based on a world full of islands
You know what?
and a lot of piracy and stuff like
That
that.
I know that Chris Perkins and Bill Slavicsek and a few other people were the ones that read through it. And I talked to Perkins in particular about this a lot, and he said they had about 80 different people gave a world of islands. I was one of them also. That there were several ideas that were percolating in, in the geekosphere, and a lot of people submitted ideas that were very close to one another.
Well, that's interesting that there were that many.
No,
And
wait. You said a world of islands?
yeah.
I was one of those.
So there,
I submitted
there were
one
at least
idea, and it was a planet that had broken. It was broken, and the chunks were sort of gravitationally held together, and whatever. But that's hilarious to hear.
yeah. So
Anyway,
Michael says the
according to Wikipedia, Eberron came out in
setting competition was
2004.
2002.
Yeah,
okay.
Eberron. According to Wikipedia, I just looked up Wikipedia. Eberron came out in 2004. So
So my
2002 would
memory
be
is it
about
was
right.
still in Milwaukee then, and I've only been to one non-Milwaukee Gen
Mhm.
Con, so I think it was still in Milwaukee then. Anyway, we
I think
ran
you're
into
right.
each other. We discovered we'd submitted basically the exact same idea. I mean, ours were very close, even beyond there being islands and there being world full of pirates and this kind of stuff. And we decided that we would team up, use this, and created together the world called the Blue Kingdoms, which we then did a number of anthology books for.
Ah,
So if
Hmm.
you go and you look for the Blue Kingdoms on Amazon, you'll find, I don't know, three, four anthologies. And in those anthologies, we recruited people we knew, but Jean also had all these writers that she knew from the writers' seminars that she's been doing, these kind of up and coming young writers. And people submitted stuff for those anthologies, and we put that together. And this is circling back to the fact that Gene was a brilliant editor. Gene knew I am a picky son of a bitch, right?
mhm.
So I would I would make all the grammar correct, and I'm sure the young writer totally hated me. Jean knew exactly how much to tweak and how much to leave alone. She was much better at leaving stuff alone that didn't it but it could carry the voice and didn't need fixing. And Jean nurtured all of those people and probably talked a few of them off the ledge after they'd worked with me and got them all going. She was a brilliant, brilliant editor. She knew who she could push where and when to get the best out of them. And it's something I hope to emulate in the future if I ever actually do any more anthologies. But she had that gift. And she found people. She could find people to do the work that needed to be done and find the writers just through everyday interactions. Everyone loved her, whether it was the old hands like Bob Vardaman, who's written. I've written, if you can, depending on how you, somewhere probably north of 100 counting anthologies, right? Bob Vardaman's got probably twice that many genres, so she'd find him and the uppers, put them all together, and she'd make them all. Brilliant.
And I was kind of a few minutes ago, like, how many books do we think Jean did? Anybody have a?
It's at least 50.
Okay.
And probably more, a lot more than that if you count the anthologies and stuff. Depending upon how you count, it's a lot. It's main author. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 50. I've done 50. So it's a lot of books. She wrote a lot of books and she edited probably even more than she wrote. So tons. And and they run the gamut. There's the fantasy book she did. I did the talk with the Dragonlance group about her Dragonlance books. That she did world design and of the Dragonlance world, and she did Dragonlance books as well. And she did, as I mentioned earlier, she completed books and did other work with Andre Norton at the end of Andre Norton's life, and she ghost wrote a criminal law book with F. Lee Bailey, right? So if you go and you get When the Husband is the Killer, Jean wrote that by F. Lee Bailey, right? And Dark Angel, she wrote Dark Angel books. She wrote her own books too, obviously, things like The Bone Shroud and Fencing's Fortune. And at the end of her life, she was doing the Piper Blackwell mysteries, which is, I think she was working on the 7th one when she died, and hoping that maybe Bruce and she will decide, Bruce will decide based on her wishes whether someone can finish that or not. But the Piper Blackwell books are the best books, in my opinion, the best books she's ever written, and she was a brilliant writer.
So Bruce says that she wrote over 60 novels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. And if you counted anthologies, it's probably 60 more. So, a lot.
Okay, so who's got a tidbit of something nobody would know about Jean? Anybody?
I got stories.
We talked about the dogs.
Talk about the dogs.
Yeah,
I got stories. She and Bruce are big into snowmobiling for quite a while. They'd go up north in Wisconsin and out in the winter, and yeah, they really enjoyed that.
She hated the cold weather.
Wow. Which is why she went snowmobiling?
But maybe not on the snowmobile, but later, she hated the cold weather, and but she loved people, and she loved her writers group. She started a writers group with up and coming writers, and then dragged me into it because she knew I was a hermit. Like, Steve, you need to come to my writers group. And they're like, no, Jean, I don't know. But it was Jean, right? So of course I went, and then I got involved in it, and then she handed it to me. Like, here, you keep this going because I'm moving to Illinois. So maybe people don't know that she hated the cold weather. She loved the warm weather and throwing tennis balls to her dog in the backyard. Loved that. That was her favorite thing to do.
Does anybody remember the pink RPGA visor?
Yes.
There was this like hard plastic, like a what the dealer in a dice game would wear.
Yeah, there wasn't many of those made. I don't know where they came from. Jean had one.
I have one somewhere, I think.
Jean had one. I never knew that anybody else had one. I don't know where she got it.
Yeah, but were they given
Ann
away
says
or?
she's got one.
I think I have one somewhere.
Yeah, there was so much stuff that was like made like one-offs and
Samples or
and samples. I mean, stuff that like
Yeah,
like
I'm assuming
the
that was
hat
probably
the hat I'm
fail.
wearing really does. You're not going to find many of these outside of old TSR.
I've got the patch. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think I don't know if
There was an RPGA jacket. I still have mine. It doesn't fit anymore, but I have that. There was the RPGA belt buckle.
There were those zippy dice bags. Remember they were about.
Yep. A buddy of mine
oblong.
brings it to the game, our in-person game every month. He still has it. Yeah. There was I think the dice, Steven, the dice wheel. That was before Gene. I think that was back in the Frank days. I think.
I think so. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I think the boxes, there were RPGA branded magazine boxes.
Yes.
Frank
shoot.
I just sold one of those.
Mine's right. Mine's right over there underneath a pile of stuff. I know exactly where it is.
You want to protect that and make sure it's in good shape.
No, it's in good shape.
If it were in good shape,
it's not in good shape.
It could definitely pay for a really, really nice dinner for you and the person of your choosing now.
Yeah, but
somehow I thought those pink visors were like notorious, but apparently not. So
my guess is those pink visors were some kind of a sales sample that someone had put together.
See, and I thought they were being given away at Gen Con, so I don't know how I got my hands on one.
Maybe
I
they.
remember seeing them. You'd have to dig a little deeper to find out where those came from.
Yeah.
Gene would take those kind of things, though. There would be someone that would say, "I can make these for the RPGA. Don't you want to buy them?" And she would take them. If she didn't want to buy them, they would become gifts and prizes.
Sure.
Fanny packs.
We had the RPGA fanny packs. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. I got mine. It's here somewhere. I know I still have it, but yeah, there was the fanny packs too. Yeah.
People want that old swag, Kevin. Take good care of it.
I sold so much of that stuff for insane amounts of money years ago.
Was Jean big in ceramics for a while too? Was she doing a lot of ceramics, or was that Skip?
I'm not sure.
Both were.
I'm not sure. I mean, we had coffee cups. I have my RPGA coffee cup around here somewhere.
No, but where you go to shop and you paint the thing, and they fire it for you.
Oh, no. Not ringing a bell.
No, I mean, if you found a piece with Jean Rabe on the bottom, maybe
Jean has a great art collection of paintings that were given to her by people that she worked with.
So I can take credit for that big picture of the Batmobile that used to be in her RPGA office. I gave that to her. So I used to work for a photo finishing studio, and some guy brought in that picture because he was one of the people promoting the Tim Burton movies. So he had a picture of it and he wanted it blown up. And this one had a little scratch in the corner, so they had to redo it. And I said to my boss, I said, "Hey, can I have that?" And it ended up above Jean's desk in her office.
So
I have no idea what happened to it.
Bruce says she was into ceramics. Confirmed.
Oh, okay. All right.
Michael in chat asks if she ever worked in the book department, and I think the answer to that is no.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't remember her being in the book department at all.
No, I mean she wrote more than a couple books for them, but she was never.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. She
as far as the regular crew of editorial staff.
Yeah, she talked to Brian all the time. Brian Thompson. I mean, she was good friends with Brian, and he would come up and talk to her for hours up in the office sometimes. So, yeah, or she would go down there.
Jean wrote good books. And
when did she leave? When did she leave TSR?
94.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we're now over an hour. I'm not going to wrap up immediately, but so after she left TSR, as Steve was saying, she did a lot of writing, some under her own name, some as ghost writing. She put the anthologies together. Worked with SIFWA. and it's the Piper. God, the Piper Blackwell books. She was doing towards the last few years of her life. What are your memories, your best memories of the stuff she did after TSR? Maybe
For me,
products she did that, or I mean, did ones you participated in, or ones that you thought, "Wow, I that's something."
That's a tough one.
yeah,
I mean,
This is me shutting down the conversation.
where to start? I mean, remember Jean and I we were in a writers group that she started that continues. I mean, we actually had last time I saw Jean was January 1st, which we decided, hey, we might as well hold the writers group. None of us have anything going on with family that day. So I have a lot of memories of Jean in the writers group and how she always she always found the best things in your story, and she always found the things that needed to improve, and she always told you about the things that needed to improve in ways that were encouraging. And she would always say, I know that's picky. Isn't that picky? And we say, no, Gene, that's not picky. That's just right. Just right. So, I will always hear her voice in my head talking about that and talking about dogs. For me, even though we did anthologies together and that kind of stuff, and we had before she moved, we used to go to brunch at least once a month and stuff like that. For me, the thing that really hit me was when I read the first Piper Blackwell books, and I thought, here she's doing something that no one else is doing anything really like it. And yes, it's kind of a procedural and a cop. Piper Blackwell is a sheriff who came back from overseas wars and kind of ran for office because her dad was unable to. Her dad, who was the sheriff, and she becomes the youngest sheriff in the area of Indiana where she works in. There was something special about those books because they seemed to combine, aside from outright fantasy stuff, so much of Jean's world experiences, all the way back to her time as a reporter. And it had her love of, police procedural and her love of things blowing up. And her love of, of law and justice and of, quirky characters. The receptionist who's the older goth lady with the piercings, and just a wonderful number of characters. It became I said to her, I know at more than one point, Gene, you shouldn't be writing anything else. These are yours. You own them. They're good enough to be a television series, certainly, or a movie series. And you should just do these. And and there was a big change for her, and it took her a long while to think, well, I'm not saying I was right and I was the first or only person to say this to her, but she came around to the point where she did want to do those for the rest of her life. She was very happy doing them. She loved the researching. She loved, the character who was a chef and owned a quick gas station. She loved researching the recipes that the Vietnamese chef would cook in his little gas station that had
Hmm.
three tables in the corner. She loved all that stuff, and finding, okay, they're going to go for a cooking contest, and they're going to look at the spice shelves, and she would find, there's a place in Wisconsin that has like 150 or more brands of oil. It's like the oil shop. So I would not have thought she could have that many oil, but Jean found these places in her research, and then she would send the characters to that kind of a place. And it was just, like I said, I felt when she hit on that idea that she'd hit on something that embodied a lot of who she was and what she loved, and it didn't necessarily need swords and sorcery, though she loved swords and sorcery. I mean, she was planning another swords and sorcery book with I don't remember. She did the first one with Craig Martell, and she was going to do the next one with another friend we know. Um, so she loved that, but when she made that choice to do something that was kind of a straight detective, straight detective fiction, it really seemed like I wish she'd come to that 10 years earlier
Yeah.
and had written more.
Sue Wineline says that she's always going to be grateful for the fact that Gene was never too busy to help anyone that needed it, and that she gave Sue a lot of help, and she was getting back into editing after being away in the business world for a while.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sue. Gene was super generous with her time.
Yeah.
Never too busy to help a friend.
Yeah. I know later, after Gene left, I read over books, and I remember thinking, the characters were all heroes, but they were so relatable, and they all had their little foibles and quirks, and I can really see why people latched onto those books and really loved them.
Yeah, the Dragonlance guys were telling me how much they loved the Goblin books, because the goblins are, they're the scum. They're the characters that you want to just kill heartlessly, and how in the course of the Dragonlance Goblin books, that she managed to make them not hate the goblins. It was like suddenly they were rooting for the goblins, and they were rooting for all these little scum of the world characters. And that was pure Gene, kind of rooting for the underdog stuff.
Yeah.
And I got to say that the Dragonlance books were I think her best ones for me. She even dedicated one to myself and Keith Polster.
Oh, nice.
I can't remember which one. Betrayal, I believe.
She dedicated one of those to me too, and I don't remember which one.
Yeah, I don't remember which one. I'll have to go back. I got it on the shelf. I probably should have grabbed it. But I know my wife loves her Piper Blackwell stuff. Because it's not just for gamers either. I mean, my wife isn't a gamer, and she just fell in love with them. And that was the other thing too. I think honestly, Gene could write anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's the bottom line. And there are a lot of people out there, myself included, who can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For the little writing I still do.
So, all right.
Gene has
go ahead.
She's got 2 short stories coming out this year that one was previously published, and it's about a dragon in the subways, and the other one is a werewolf story that I don't think anyone but me and a very small group of people have ever heard, that she tried to sell. But when people turned Gene's stories down, there was always like, what are you thinking? How could you possibly not have taken this? How could you put the stuffer dragon in the subway story in the middle of an anthology where no one's ever going to see it, right? Why is it not the first or last story? Are you out of your mind? So there are at least 2 more stories.
You know where those are coming out?
They're being published by Jerry Red Shepherds, publishing this company this year, and I don't remember which months of the year they're coming out. They're still firming up her schedule and that kind of stuff. But by the end of the year, there should be those 2 books. That little company is doing 4 books this year. If you care, I'm in all of them, but they're doing 4 books, and Gene's got a brand new story in one of those that I think the werewolf story is. Why did no one buy this story? So she does, and again, that's fantasy and horror, and she did both of them brilliantly. She could, as you said, she could write anything.
Yeah, and a lot of this is still available if folks want to go check it out.
Yeah,
she's got tons of stuff on Amazon.
All right.
All the Piper books are on Amazon, and they're all creator owned. So, that goes right to Bruce and the family, and whatever charities or uses they care to do with it. So,
all right. Well, guys, I really appreciate you taking some time to come here and have this conversation. I mean, I didn't have a lot to say because by the time I got to TSR, Gene was gone. And while I worked tangentially with her on the Dragonlance 5th Age stuff, I didn't work directly with her on anything. I met her on more than a couple of occasions. have loads of respect for her and all the work she did. But it's been great getting to hang out and talk with you guys who did know her much better than that. So thank you for doing that.
Well,
Thanks for having
Stan,
us,
thanks for
Dan.
doing this. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, no, you had me at Gene.
And for anybody who wants, I mean, Gene had an online memorial a couple weeks ago. Don Bingle or Derek White was the presenter, the minister at the thing. Yeah, and he'll be at GaryCon too. If you see Derek, thank him. It was a wonderful service. And there's a video of it online for people to consume.
There's a link on Don's Facebook page and
Yep,
Derek's
and Derek's
mine
Facebook page. Yeah.
So, and at some point I'll probably put links up on my own site for this. For these are the interviews that I've done in that as well. So.
Hey, so that's a good segue. Before we go, is there anything that you guys want to plug for yourselves? Steve, what's your website?
GaryCon.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Am I starting with the website?
You just mentioned your website. What is it?
StephenDSullivan.com or SDSullivan.com, and you'll find links to all my ongoing stuff there. Books to read: Dr. Cushing, Chamber of Horrors if you like horror, the Tournament of Death series if you like fantasy, sword and sorcery stuff, and more to come. I've got a shark book coming out. I've got a licensed werewolf book coming out. I'm busier than I should be at the age I should be retiring.
Kevin, you were saying GaryCon?
Yep, come to GaryCon. I'm running a first edition D&D and some Marvel superheroes or Marvel multiverse.
Cool.
Role playing. So.
And I'm doing a bunch of writer seminars at GaryCon. Writer and designer, writer gamer stuff. It's all in the seminar track, whatever they call it. Right. That Jerry Shepard, who's publishing Gene's work this year, she runs that at GaryCon. So.
And I know we had you on. You said you weren't doing anything in particular to plug. Has anything coming up?
Nothing creative, unfortunately. Work is so busy. So I work for Milwaukee Public Schools, and it is always a zoo. So yeah, I really enjoy what I do, but yeah, we're just constantly busy. So yeah, unfortunately, not much creative going on here.
Are you coming to GaryCon?
Not sure yet.
Okay.
What?
I will do. I will for sure make the Saturday night thing.
Okay.
As long as you're at the reunion.
Absolutely. I wouldn't miss that for the world. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Sadly, I will not be at GaryCon, but I'm not in Wisconsin, so it's harder for me.
Right.
All right, you guys hold on. I'm going to do a quick outro, and then we can. I can thank you again a little more effusively, but thank you all for being here. It's been a
everybody.
Great hour.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Buy
everybody.
Gene's books. Read Gene's books. Get them at your library.
Fun hour plus chatting. I see my camera has frozen up again. I think we're lucky that we got through nearly 90 minutes without the whole thing going down. Anyway, thank you to Steve Sullivan and Kevin Melka and Ann Brown for being my guests and spending some time talking about the life and work of Gene Rabe, who, as I mentioned, kind of obvious, but say it again, passed away last month. She did a lot for the industry, for the hobby, and for fans of fiction and gaming around the world. I will be back tomorrow with a new episode of Random Encounters. Actually, I may have to. I may not, but check my social media about that. I might have a last minute reschedule on that. But I'll be back later this week with a Random Encounters episode. I'll be back next week with a more standard episode of 50 Years in the Dungeon. And until then, thank you all for tuning in, and I will talk to you soon.